Chapter 1. Introduction. The harsh reality of medieval life. Imagine waking up in a world without electricity, running water, or modern medicine. The air is thick with smoke from open hearths, and the streets are muddy paths lined with thatched cottages. This isn't a scene from a fantasy novel. It's daily life in a medieval village. While tales of knights and castles often romanticize the Middle Ages, the reality for the average villager was far from glamorous. Life was a relentless struggle against disease, hunger, and the elements. In this video, we'll explore the brutal conditions of medieval village life and why surviving in such an environment would be a daunting challenge for anyone accustomed to modern comforts. Chapter 2. Grueling physical labor from dawn to dusk. In a medieval village, the day began at sunrise and ended at sunset, filled with back-breaking labor. Without modern machinery, tasks like plowing fields, harvesting crops, and fetching water required immense physical effort. Men, women, and even children toiled in the fields, tended to livestock, and performed household chores. The concept of leisure time was virtually non-existent. Every member of the household contributed to the daily workload, ensuring the family's survival. Physical demands were relentless, leaving little energy for anything beyond mere subsistence. Imagine waking up before dawn, with aching muscles from the day before, knowing that today would be no different. Seasonal tasks like planting and harvesting were particularly brutal, often requiring long hours of repetitive and exhausting labor. Even small children were expected to help, gathering firewood, herding animals, or assisting with cooking and cleaning. There was no such thing as a weekend or vacation, just an endless cycle of work, fatigue, and survival. Chapter 3. Lack of hygiene and rampant disease. Hygiene standards in medieval villages were abysmal. Bathing was infrequent, and sanitation facilities were rudimentary at best. Waste was often disposed of in open pits or directly onto the streets, contaminating water sources. This unsanitary environment was a breeding ground for diseases like dysentery, cholera, and the plague. Medical knowledge was limited, and treatments were based on superstition rather than science. A simple infection could become life-threatening, and epidemics could decimate entire communities. The average life expectancy was low, and infant mortality rates were alarmingly high. People lived in close quarters with animals, leading to constant exposure to fleas, lice, and vermin. Drinking water was often drawn from contaminated wells or streams, causing widespread illness. Even minor wounds could turn septic without antibiotics, and diseases like smallpox or tuberculosis spread rapidly in such cramped, filthy conditions. Chapter 4. Scarcity of food and poor nutrition. Food scarcity was a constant concern in medieval villages. Crop failures due to bad weather or pests could lead to famine. The diet was monotonous, primarily consisting of coarse bread, porridge, and seasonal vegetables. Meat was a luxury, rarely consumed by peasants. Malnutrition weakened the immune system, making villagers more susceptible to disease. During harsh winters or times of poor harvest, starvation was a real threat. The struggle to secure enough food was a daily battle, leaving little room for nutritional variety or balance. Most meals were little more than gruel or thin soup, often flavored with little more than salt or onions. Dairy products were rare, and fresh fruit was seasonal and scarce. Vitamins and minerals were virtually unknown concepts, and nutritional deficiencies led to widespread health problems, from scurvy to rickets. Children often bore the brunt of these shortages, suffering from stunted growth and developmental issues. Chapter 5. Harsh justice and severe punishments. The legal system in medieval times was brutal and unforgiving. Minor offenses could result in severe punishments, including public humiliation, mutilation, or even execution. Trials were often biased, and the concept of innocent until proven guilty was non-existent. Punishments were designed to deter others, often carried out in public to instill fear. The lack of a fair judicial process meant that many suffered unjustly, with little recourse for appeal or mercy. Stealing a loaf of bread could result in being whipped or having an ear cut off. Accused witches or heretics could face burning at the stake or drowning. Public executions were common spectacles, drawing large crowds eager to witness the suffering of the condemned. Justice was swift, brutal, and often arbitrary, with decisions made by local lords or church officials with little concern for evidence or fairness. Chapter 6. Rigid social hierarchy and lack of freedom. Medieval society was strictly hierarchical. At the bottom were the peasants, bound to the land they worked on, with little hope of upward mobility. Their lives were dictated by the local lord, who controlled land, resources, and justice. Obligations like taxes, labor services, and tithes to the church further burdened them. Personal freedom was limited, and questioning authority could lead to severe repercussions. The rigid social structure ensured that the majority remained oppressed and powerless. Peasants were required to work the lord's fields, repair roads, and perform other duties without compensation. Marriages needed the lord's approval, and moving to another village without permission could result in punishment. The church exerted enormous influence, demanding tithes and controlling education, morality, and social behavior. Daily life was governed by a strict code of obedience and submission. Chapter 7. Constant threats and insecurity. Life in a medieval village was fraught with dangers. Raids by bandits or rival lords could result in destruction, theft, and loss of life. There was no standing police force. Villagers often had to defend themselves. Additionally, the threat of war, conscription, and forced labor loomed large. Natural disasters like floods or fires could devastate entire communities with little means for recovery. The constant state of insecurity added to the daily stress and hardship of village life. Armed conflicts between feudal lords often spilled into rural areas, turning villages into battlegrounds. Drafting young men for military service was common, leaving families short of labor. Wild animals posed threats to livestock and humans alike. A simple accident, like falling from a ladder or being kicked by a horse, could easily result in death due to the lack of medical care. Chapter 8. Conclusion. The unbearable hardships of medieval village life. Surviving in a medieval village required immense physical strength, resilience, and endurance. The combination of grueling labor, poor hygiene, inadequate nutrition, harsh justice, and constant threats created an environment where life was a daily struggle. For those accustomed to modern conveniences and rights, adapting to such conditions would be nearly impossible. The romanticized view of the Middle Ages often overlooks the harsh realities faced by the majority. Understanding these challenges provides a more accurate picture of the past and a greater appreciation for the advancements of the present. Next time you feel frustrated by slow internet or a missed coffee order, remember, you could have been hauling water at dawn, fighting disease without medicine, or begging for mercy from a feudal lord. If you found this exploration insightful, consider subscribing to Dark Age Archives for more deep dives into history's most challenging eras.